Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to today's Caffeine for the Soul. And today I wanted to talk about the magic bullet and the magic formula. And one of the things that was probably the biggest adjustment for me and for my clients when I shifted from doing primarily sort of traditional life coaching, neurolinguistic programming, mind control type stuff, and the work that I do now with the Inside Out Understanding is that I went from being a master and encyclopedia of techniques to someone who really doesn't use techniques for himself or in his work. And so my lifelong quest for magic bullets and magic formulas, magic bullet, the one thing that will take care of everything, the magic formula, the one technique or practice that if you just do that, everything will work out, sort of fell off my to-do list, finding those things. And yet recently I've noticed that I kind of feel I have found a magic bullet and I have found a magic formula. So I'm going to share what it looks like to me. And what matters is what you see for you. So what's the magic bullet? What's the one thing that changes everything? What's the one thing that takes care of everything? Now, over the years, I've come up with a lot of ideas about what it might be and thought, okay, if I could just find the one thing, then I'll just pay attention to the one thing. And the one thing that I found that really does change everything is the present moment. Not a moment in time, but a moment before time. A moment beyond time. A moment outside of time. The moment we find ourselves in the moment. Everything changes. Well-being starts to bubble up inside us. Our personal thinking fades into the background. Creative ideas start surfacing. Things occur to us. We relax. We breathe. We see more clearly. We stop panicking and urgenting and pushing. We talk a lot in spiritual understandings about going within. But within really just means beyond. Within really just means before. Before thought. Before form. Pure spirit. Pure consciousness, uncontaminated by our personal thinking. The moment we touch that space, everything changes. Or to put it another way, nothing changes, but everything's different. And that's why books like Be Here Now by Ram Dass, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, so capture the imagination. Because when you get a glimpse of the now, when you step into the now, it's what Sid Banks called the ultimate answer to any question. You're one thought away, Sid would say, from a whole new experience of being alive. And what is that one thought? A state of thoughtlessness. But if now is the magic bullet, what's the magic formula? Is there a magic formula I can use to always be now? I don't know. But I've found something that is as close to a magic formula as I've seen for a long time when there's something I notice that I really no longer want to do, or something I notice that I really do want to have become more of my experience. And it's the simplest thing in the world. It's noticing. So I first really saw the magic formula in action when I was talking with a coach of mine, and she said, "Do you want to keep living in fear?" Because the inside of my head, if you don't know it, and I feel I talk about it enough that you would, but the inside of my head has long been a scary place. And I was like, no. And she said, well, if you're really clear that you don't want to do that anymore, all you have to do is notice when you're scaring yourself. And it'll stop. It'll change. It'll extinguish itself as a habit of thought. It will lose its traction in your mind. And I thought, that can't be true. It can't be that simple. But I tried it. I just started catching myself scaring myself, noticing myself, freaking myself out. And sure enough, over time, I've done it less and less, which means I've spent less time in fear and more time at peace. Less time scared and on edge, and more time really present. I got really clear that I wanted to be a better listener. And I had noticed that my mind just wanders off into judgment and response and all sorts of places when I listen. But once I got really clear what I wanted, to listen, to be present and listen, not to go off, then I just started to notice when I was really clear and present. And I noticed when I would take myself away, and my listening started to get better and better and better, because I had less on my mind. So I was more available and able to hear. Now, notice that you can turn this into a job. Right, I must be alert, I must notice, I must pay total attention to every thought that goes through my head. My experience of that is that's not really noticing. That's attempting to control in the guise of noticing. Noticing is just shining a light. And when you shine a light on your own experience, you see more. But more than that, there's a beautiful little line in Sid Banks' book, The Enlightened Gardener. And a character named Janet, who's a therapist, she says that the seriousness and mental distress that used to be present in my office perpetuated the illnesses I was trying to cure. At some point after my visit, I realized that seriousness and discomfort is to mental illness as dark and damp is to fungus. On the other hand, love and lightheartedness are to mental illness as sunlight and dryness is to fungus. They assist to eradicate mental illness and promote mental health. All noticing is sunlight on your own thinking. And when the lights are on, the thinking that's unhealthy dries out and disappears of its own accord. There's nothing there to feed it anymore. When it comes out of the dark and into the light, your work is already done. So a lot for you to experiment with if you like to experiment, but feel free not to. Feel free to just hang out a little bit more in the moment and see what happens. Have fun, learn heaps, and I'll talk with you soon.